So the Sacramento Kings drafted Marvin Bagley, hoping that he can transform their franchise. But there's some uncertainty of whether he can play the power forward or center position. And speaking of those two spots for the Kings, it may be the biggest logjam in the NBA. First, we go to Willie Cauley-Stein, who I don't think has totally become what was expected of him in the NBA, which is a multi-position defender who can cover the pick and roll, protect the rim, and do some stuff on offense. But at the same time, he is showing some signs. There's Zach Randolph, who hijacked their offense last year, and every time he's in there, you can expect a bunch of post-ups and face-up plays and the ball to come to a screeching halt. And I'm sure he's still going to want some minutes. We've got Costa Koufis, who's probably the most forgettable of all these guys, but he could also be the most fundamentally sound, as he's been playing about 20 minutes a game for the past 5 or 6 seasons. We've got Skal Labissiere, whose potential is still pretty intriguing, because I think he can be a at least pretty damn good offensive player if you give him some time. We also have Nemanja Bjelica, a stretch 4, who seemed like he was going to go to the 76ers, and then he ended up on the Kings kind of out of nowhere. But then we've also got Harry Giles, who at one time was an athletic powerhouse before some lower body injuries made his NBA stock drop down. His 1 year in college was not the best, but we do have to account for him as well. But we're going to begin all of this with Marvin Bagley, because he is the centerpiece of everything here. And I think, depending on what position Bagley proves to be best at, is going to dictate what happens with everybody else. So the first thing is we have to decide what position Bagley should actually play. Is it power forward or center? I think you can make a case for either one. He isn't really strong enough to play the center position, as he's hovering around 235, 240, and he has a pretty thin frame to him. But at the same time, he can be more athletic than most NBA 5s. However, the strength difference between him and everybody else could be so drastic that you have to play him at the 4 spot. The problem with him at the 4 spot is, while his jump shot and his ball handling are something, they're not far along enough to where you're just comfortable slotting him at the 4 position. Now, I don't think anybody expects him to be a final product in his rookie season, but this is still a decision you got to make right now. I mean, if it was up to me, I would put him at the 4 spot. I think that's the closest to what the NBA today wants. And while, sure, the jump shot may not be the best thing in the world right now, I'm still more comfortable with that than him at the 5 spot. And I think if he can play the 4, then that opens up Willie Cauley-Stein playing the center position. I do have some fears that Stein could kill some of the spacing for Bagley, because again, if Bagley's jump shot isn't all the way there, then he's going to want to attack the rim a lot, and then Stein's going to be chilling around the basket. But you got to have 2 bigs out there, so I think that's what you would go with. Now, if Bagley proves that he needs to be playing the center position because he's just not skilled enough right now to play the 4 spot, then I think that could cause some problems, because again, he may just get overpowered by a lot of NBA 5s, you know? Now, I think he could out-athletic them, like I mentioned earlier, but at a certain point, like, you're going to have to grab rebounds, you're going to have to defend the low post, and if you just can't compete with them in terms of strength, you know, that's going to be a problem. Now, if Bagley does prove to be at least a decent center, then that opens up Bjelica a little bit more, because then you could have him at the 4 spot, Bagley at the 5, and I think that could be pretty interesting. It would improve your spacing a lot, as opposed to Bagley and Willie Cauley-Stein, I'll tell you that. And that could be decently difficult to defend. I mean, Bjelica, the one problem with him is he is sometimes a little gun shy in terms of shooting them from 3, but I would hope that he has gotten over that. We should also talk about Skal Labissiere, who I believe wants to be a shooter. I mean, he's at least attempted about 1 3 a game in the NBA, and his percentages have been pretty alright. And I think he's had some moments from mid-range and, you know, face-up moves that would suggest that he can be a shooter. And if he can do that, then you can have a bit more versatility, and you would have some better spacing, because then you're going to have him and Bjelica, 2 big guys who can come in there, stretch the floor out for everybody else. Or if Labissiere is just going to be like a mid-range shooter, I mean, it's not ideal, but it's certainly better than nothing. Labissiere is interesting. I think his college career was a little disappointing, but if you see some of his highlights in Kings games, like on a day-to-day basis, you can see some of the talent that guy has. As for Zach Randolph, I mean, I'll just be honest, like, I would prefer if Zebo just wasn't on this team, because all I see from him is bad defense and taking offense away from other guys. And while I think there's a discussion to be had about how good can the spacing be with different dudes on this team, with Zebo, the spacing is never going to be that great. It's just the way it is with the guy. We can talk about Harry Giles for a little bit. At one time, he was an athletic freak who was dominating AAU and high school and everything, but injuries left him to be still pretty good, but nowhere where he once was. He also had some confidence issues along the way. I think with him, it's a matter of, is he a real basketball player? Like, was he just relying on athleticism the entire time? Or can he really play in a system? Does he have a jump shot? Does he have post moves? Is he a quality rebounder who gets the fundamentals of boxing out? Can he play team defense? It's just going to be a matter of seeing with him. But again, I think the end-all be-all of all this is Marvin Bagley. Depending on what position he should be playing, power forward or center, that is going to determine if Willie Cauley-Stein plays more than Bielitsa, if Costa Koufos plays more than whoever, if Skal Labissiere can even get in there when Bagley's in the game. We're going to have to find out. It's something to pay attention to if you want to watch the Kings. And if you want to listen to a podcast, it's in the description. I went down a list of like 30 of the best NBA free agents in 2019, talked about their situations, gave my opinion on Lil Wayne's new album, and then talked about this new movie called Searching that was pretty good.